Stowaways, Mother Flame, the Elder Planets, Baby Doofy, and the figures of old. All of this comes together in One Piece chapter 1086 that we will be discussing now. Getting into this chapter, there was a ton of conclusions from the previous chapter as well, which I missed my stream on last week, so we did a double feature this week. But just want to say that everything that's been revealed, the Sabo, the creepy figures, everything that's going on in the throne room, Wapple, everything is coming to such a head into this chapter. And now everything seems to be coming together now from what we've already known in previous chapters, based on Sabo's reflection. How Vivi and Wapple got together. Well, are both with Morgans, I should say. How Sabo got away from the Lulusia Kingdom, how that was a coincidence. And what exactly destroyed Lulusia Kingdom? And who were the Gores? Decades later, we find out. But getting right into it, make sure you subscribe and like the video if you enjoy what I have to say and the One Piece chapters that I talk about. Feel free to continue the conversation down here and let me know all your thoughts about each one of these plot points that I'm going to go over. Also check me out on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff for more One Piece gaming and anime content. But starting off with the beginning of the chapter, we have some stowaways. We've got Vivi and Wapple stowing away in the Aegis Kingdom's, that kingdom's ship. And we see that Wapple has some connection with Morgans as he calls Morgans in to pick them up, which is, like I said, how they got to be in Morgans' blimp and see all of that come together back in chapter 1074. And we have Jewelry Bonnie, who's on the Jejin Kingdom ship. Assumably that is how she gets to Egghead, with the big whirlpool and all that happening with the fish eating her, and how she ends up on Egghead where Luffy finds her later on. This is the ship that she resides on. So she wasn't actually with her crew when she arrived in Egghead. And of course then we have Sabo, who ends up on the lower decks of the Lulusia Kingdom ship, which of course that's when he goes to the kingdom. The residents seem to herald him as a hero for killing Cobra as this news now starts to come out, and although of course this is not what Sabo actually did, he couldn't bear but break the news to them because they saw him as such a hero and lit the fire under their hopes of turning over a new leaf for the world, for the government, and sparking a faith in the revolutionaries themselves. So with this interest of the revolutionaries, a lot of recruits go with Sabo as they leave Lulusia Kingdom as a giant flame explosion eradicates the island from history. Luckily, like I said, Sabo was just leaving the port with these people. Unfortunately, of course, there were still citizens on the island. It's just that some of them did make it out along with Sabo. But Sabo did a cool trick where he rerouted the snail's connection to the Lulusia Kingdom to make it look like that's where his broadcast was coming from, to give the government a little bit of a runaround who were surely wiretapping his calls, especially to Dragon and everything. He assumably had no idea that Lulusia Kingdom was going to be destroyed, of course, but, you know, we see kind of later that the timeline of events, it wasn't his fault, like I thought. And now we get to the Mother Flame, the thing itself that destroyed Lulusia Kingdom with strands of holy fire bearing down onto the island and just completely exploding it in a mass of eradication from history. Again, it doesn't exist. Pretty terrifying. The Gores refer to the Mother Flame as Vegapunk's invention, but as we see later, Dragon and Eva seem to believe that Vegapunk would never make such a clear killing machine, and so they reference that it might be the work of an ancient weapon, which the parallels between Emu, that we'll learn later on again, and the ancient weapons, there's clearly a connection there with ancient times and 800 years ago, a lot of things happening, immoral surgeries. There's reason to believe that Eam would very much have the power of the ancient weapons in their hands. But it is interesting the order of events here, because when Eam demanded the testing of the Mother Flame, I assumed that would have been because of Sabo, but looking back to chapter 1060, we see that they don't find out that Sabo is on the Lulusia Kingdom until afterwards. When Lulusia Kingdom is mentioned originally in this chapter, the Gores wonder why Eam would be wanting to target Lulusia, and Eam simply states that it's proximity, indicating that there was just a rush to test it, to move the device, assumably from the red line, to Lulusia Kingdom, just to test it. Because then looking at 1060, when the Gores find that Sabo is on the Lulusia Kingdom, they reference him as being unlucky, and it being fate that Sabo was on Lulusia. He wasn't, but they thought he was. But it makes me wonder if Sabo wasn't the exact target, and the reason why Lulusia Kingdom was targeted, what was? Was it the anger of Emu in having so many unaccounted subjects get away? Are they just rushing to test these weapons now to take care of the repercussions of Sabo's actions? They mention Egghead, so is Emu rushing to get things taken care of on Egghead so that they could use this device on Egghead? Which would make sense, because if they want the Aegis Zero kind of gotten rid of too, they mentioned that with Lucci, disguising this as a mission for the Aegis Zero agents to go to Vegapunk's island, only for it to be completely destroyed, would be a pretty fair reason, clear cover-up to get rid of Aegis Zero. Or this might just be unrelated to Sabo specifically, and just another indication that Emu is officially starting this great cleansing that they talked about a few chapters ago, back when we saw the Revelry originally. And maybe they just want to be ready as soon as possible. But moving on to the Gores, it definitely took me way too long to realize the clever ways that they are related to the planets. I of course knew the Elder Planets were referencing each planet, like Marcus Mars and J. Garcia Saturn. Those were obvious. The other ones, yeah, not so obvious for me. But we have, like I said, Saint J. Garcia Saturn, who is of course the one who's on his way to Egghead. Saint Marcus Mars, great name, solid, strong. Saint Topman Valkyrie, which stated in the notes for the TCB scans, is kind of a play on words of Valkyrie and Marie Curie, Mercury, type of thing like that. So there's the connection there. That was explained for me, so I was able to get that one. But then these two, yeah, it clicked a little bit too late. Saint Ethan Baron V. Nusjoro. Venus Juro. Get it? Venus Juro. V. Nusjoro. Is there a connection to Wano? I don't know, but it's a clever one. Really had no idea there. And this one's even worse, that Saint Shepherd Jew Peter literally didn't make the connection that it's Jupiter. Cool names, cool play on words, all neat titles, especially the God Warrior Finance, definitely the coolest one. But yeah, nice to meet all these lovely men after decades of meeting them the first time. Now, what are their powers? That's what I really want to know. What are the creepy silhouettes that we saw in the last chapter? That's what I really need to know. Maybe another 20 years. We'll find out. Of course, we have Baby Dofi. I cannot do a review on this chapter without mentioning Baby Dofi. He's even got the little Dofi walk. And Crocodile and Moria are also here. They specifically mentioned that they're looking for Crocodile, that they've been sighted on this island, and they're rolling out this Seraphim to go look for Crocodile and look for a bunch of different things. But hey, we see Baby Croco here, and Croco Mom theory. Still waiting for confirmation there. Still could be a chance. And now we go to the figures of old, where Saint Emu of House Narona was one of the original 20 founders of the world government. This goes along with the theory that I thought maybe Lily, one of the original founders, was Eam. Not quite that, because it turned out Lily was actually kind of cool. Turns out she's good. But not all of them. So Eam is most definitely the Saint Emu of House Narona of 800 years ago, who was of the original founders. So, This kind of confirms the use of the immortal surgery, which that theory is very old. Of course, a lot of people were thinking that Emu would be the best candidate for getting the immortal surgery. Also, cool Law connection, as always, so maybe it can come into play later if Law knows anything about the previous users. Probably very confidential, but I mean, at least the previous user, the infamous doctor that they talked about, was noteworthy. So who knows what other or how many other users of this fruit could have happened, appeared, and disappeared over the past 800 years. How many were documented and how many actually used the surgery. Don Quixote Mulesguard here, though, takes his final stand here. It's pretty unfortunate to see at the end of this chapter Mulesguard strung up, being the celestial dragon that was murdered by the commander of the God's Knights, which we'll get into that in a second. Even as a celestial dragon, he was a likable character. He was the one way back at Otahime. I always forget that history that he has with Otahime and how he was a jerk, but then, you know, she brought him around and he kind of helped her bring fishmen back to light, helped for the freedom and everything like that, and of course now helped in the current reverie, once again helping Shirahoshi and the fishmen try to escape the discrimination of the other celestial dragons. The death flags on that guy were clear, even being a celestial dragon, but after the stunt with Shirahoshi and his indirect attacks and direct attacks on Sharlos, I thought that Sharlos was going to be the mastermind, for lack of a better word, on Mulesguard's demise, but seems like instead we get Daddy Shanks. Saint Figurland Garland. Quote, "If she had Figurland blood, it might not be too easy." Saint Ethan Baron Venus Juro. Film read. Brought to my attention by chat. The name Figurland has already been mentioned in Film Red. Blew my actual mind. This was, of course, referring to Uta at the time, saying that if she was Shanks' biological daughter, then she has Figurland blood herself. Of course, at the time they didn't know she was adopted, so this means that Shanks is a Figurland. And now we're seeing the Supreme Commander of God's Knights named Figurland. Is it directly Daddy Shanks? Is it directly Shanks' father? Is it an uncle, cousin, older brother? I don't know. Looks like a father or grandfather figure. But, I mean, these One Piece films really need to stop, and by stop I mean keep going. Stop with the foreshadowing and spoilers of all of these manga events. I mean, come on! It's great. I love it. This could be, of course, why Shanks got a pass from the Gores to visit them and, you know, talk with them all nonchalantly about a certain pirate. Whatever else Shanks could be connected to. Because the question now is, what is the relationship with this Saint Figurland Garling and Shanks? Is it a rivalry, which would indicate still a happy, good Shanks trying to bring in the new dawn under Roger and everything like that, which is what I'm going with. But it also brings in the possibility that if Shanks truly is the missing child of a strong family of a celestial dragon, that opens up a whole lot of worms. We even have seen theories that Dragon was an ex-celestial dragon. So if these two are connected in some way just by being celestial dragons, it says a lot for the end game, that final war, that confrontation, that there's going to be a lot of underhanded kind of big connections that we're going to be diving into. But the dragon thing is a theory. Shanks seems to be pretty confirmed according to Film Red. But this does imply that there is a small chance that Shanks could be evil. I know a lot of people are gunning for that theory. I'm not personally, but hey, I try. If it happens, it happens. Yeah, it might indicate that Shanks does have a more positive connection with this Garling figure, Lind, and could be working against the pirates this whole time. But I am definitely more leaning towards the idea that there's going to be this big rivalry. If it is even Shanks' direct father, that would be an insane confrontation if Shanks ever ends up on the top of the Grand Line. at Marie-Joie, which after this, I mean, they have to meet now, right? To at least confirm these connections. Oh man, this chapter, like I said earlier, is setting up a lot of shit, and it's great. Regardless of Shanks' connection to Figurland Garling, this guy means business, and he is the supreme commander of God's Knights, which just keeps giving me more and more ranks that we need to know more about of the Celestial Dragon Castle on Pangea and all this stuff. I mean, Garling himself has the ability to enact justice on celestial dragons, something completely incredible, literally, cannot believe it, and powerful. Now the question is, do all of God's Knights have this power to enact justice together against celestial dragons? Because if so, that is a lot of power for a lot of people. On the other hand, it might just be Figurehead Garland. I keep calling him Figurehead. Figurland Garling. If it is just Garling, then that is a lot of power for one person, which is also very bad. So we'll find out which one it is. Again, two great options going forward from this chapter. But I do love his design with the crescent moon thing. That's pretty cool. But so the ranks as we know them now, generally, maybe give or take, I'm guessing is Eam, the Gores, Supreme Commander General Garling, the God's Knights, and then the Celestial Dragons on the bottom, which is crazy to say. Again, the God's Knights and the Celestial Dragons might be switched or equal, but the Supreme Commander Garling for sure is confirmed to be above the Celestial Dragons at least, because again, rip Milsgard. But that concludes this chapter. There is a 4-week break as Oda gets eye surgery done, and although I will be missing the adventures of One Piece, I hope and look forward to seeing the next chapter and seeing if maybe we're gonna get back to Egghead Island and see what Luffy and the crew are up to, because it has been a minute, or are we going to get even more deep lore about this manga, because it just keeps pouring out. Yeah, I'm excited, and of course, like I said, let me know all of your thoughts about all of these. What are your thoughts about Garling, Mother Flame, Planetary, Gores, and of course Sabo, Dragon, and Eva, and all their reactions to all of this. It's been a hell of a few chapters, so hang in there for the break. I will be streaming games and such along the break. But yeah, just hang in there, and if not, I'll see you guys in a month. This is Beppo signing out. Have a good day. Bye. Shoo.